Alright, if you watched the previous videos, I was describing how you initiate a project according to the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. I also explained all the planning process. It's so much fun in creating our project management plan. Let me know how you're doing with your project management plan. Some people believe that it is a lot of processes. It is 49 processes, and then you have to memorize all the 3,000 tools and techniques, inputs, and all of that. And in fact, I use this daily in my projects, so it's not that big deal, it's not that difficult. What happens when we are using best practices in project management, and the PMBOK Guide is a compilation of best practices, is that this is already part of what you're doing in your project. Sometimes we are not doing this in a proper way, in a structured way, and that's why I wanted to describe it here, how you can do. So we learned that in the initiating, we developed the project charter, we identify the stakeholders. So in the initiating processes group are not project phases, right? So life cycle is different from the processes groups. But in the initiating, what happens is that we have the information to start a project. And in the planning, what we do in the planning is that we have the detailed here, so 1A more here, so let me change. So we have in the planning, we create detailed plans for scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risks, procurement, and stakeholders. And what we're going to do now is that we're going to move to the execution, or executing a project, and also in the monitoring and controlling. So I'm going to divide it here, controlling, monitoring and controlling. And let's check it out how this happens in practice. All right, so as I mentioned to you, we have a knowledge area that we call integration, and this knowledge area is responsible for coordinating, for integrating the project plans and also all the project activities. So every time you are thinking about a new process group, think about it in a way that you should start with the integration processes. And in the execution, we have two integration processes. We have the direct and manage a project, so 4.3, direct and manage a project, which means we're going to take a look at the plan here, and we're going to execute the plan, right? So the project management plan 4.2, which integrates all the other subsidiary plans, the scope plan, schedule plan, and so on. This is going to be the input for 4.3. We also have the manage project knowledge, so 4.4, manage knowledge. And this is important. It's a change from the 5th edition to the 6th edition, because in the past and before the 6th edition, we knew that we had to collect lessons learned, to organize lessons learned, but nobody did that because we didn't have a process for that. So in manage project knowledge, we have to get lessons learned, be careful with documentation and all of that. Now let's move to the other knowledge areas. So in the executing, we don't have anything related to the scope. We also don't have anything related to cost and to some of the other areas, because as I mentioned to you, in the executing, we are just executing. So once we have direct and manage a project, we move to the resources, because we need resources for the execution. We had the resource plan, 9.1. We had the estimating resources for the activities, 9.2. Now we have 9.3. Acquire resources. Acquire resources means that we are getting the resource. It could be internally or externally. So acquire resources, it could be human resources, it could be facilities, equipment, any kind of resource. Once we acquire the resources, they are available for the project, we can start executing the tasks. And once we acquire the resources, the human resources are different from the other resources. That's why we have another process here, 9.4, which is develop the team. So we have team building activities. For example, you're going to use documents, stages, forming, storming, norming, and so on. You're going to use many different tools and techniques so that you can develop the team and finally manage the team. Lead and manage the team. Manage the team. And as you manage the team, you are assigning tasks to them, directing, managing, supervising, coordinating, delegating. Manage teams means also that we are developing the team and the individuals. We are also providing management, guidance, oversight to the individuals and to the team. So manage team performance. You're doing well, you're not doing well, you are arriving late at work, and so on. So this is related to human resources and very important topics. The other thing we have here is that we have 13.3. So this is related to stakeholders. We manage or engage stakeholders. Because as we're doing project work, we have to talk to the stakeholders, we have to persuade stakeholders, we have to engage them in many different activities. So manage stakeholders. We have the communications, 10.2. So manage communications. Pay attention that every process we have here in the execution, communications. So every processes we have here, usually it starts with manage. In manage stakeholders, actually, this is the name of the process. We want to engage them, but it's manage stakeholders. Acquire resources, develop the team, manage the team. Manage stakeholders, manage communication. Then you conduct procurement. So 12.1, conduct procurement. Anything that you have to buy, you are going to buy during the execution. You planned procurement in planning, and now we have to conduct procurement here. And finally, the last process we have here is related to risks. So we have the risk management, implement responses. Implement risk responses. I'll put only responses here, but it's implement risk response. What are those responses? If you have to buy spare parts, if you need to buy insurance, if you need to create action plans or anything else that is needed related to the risk response, you're going to put this into practice here. So it's very important. I would like to highlight this, that we have these integration processes, that you need to acquire resources and also conduct procurement so that you have the resources you need to execute. Here you're going to delegate, take a look at the tasks, manage the schedule, and all of this. This is direct and manage a project. And in parallel to the execution, as we execute the project, then we have the monitoring and controlling. And in monitoring and controlling, you also have two different processes here related to the integration. So we manage knowledge. Here we have 4.5, where we control project work. Control project work. This is related to performance, if I'm ahead schedule, behind schedule. And we also have another process which is integrated change control. Integrated change control. So these are the two processes related to integration. As you can see, chapter 4, integration, control project work. This is related to performance. Let me just put some notes here that would make it easier for you in understanding the process. So this is performance. If I'm ahead schedule, behind schedule, if I'm over budget, under budget, if the resources are overallocated, suballocated, and all of that. And the integrated change control means that every change we have in our project should be a formal change. You have a change request, and then you go through the approvals. If the change request is approved, it depends on the impacts, then you update the plan, and then you execute the plan and you understand what would be those impacts. So it's very important that you understand change control is an important topic for project management. Otherwise, you have scope creep, you have change, uncontrolled changes, and this is very bad. This is very harmful to our project. So let's go. We have the validate scope and control scope. So validate scope, let me just keep the same color here. So 5.5, validate scope. Validate scope means acceptance, while control scope means we know that we're doing only what we need and not more than what we needed. So validate scope means that you have walkthroughs, acceptance, you get the sign off for each of the different deliverables we have in our projects. Before we validate scope, usually we take the deliverables, the end results, into quality control, because quality control is internal to the project. And after we have quality control approval, then we take this to validation with the customer. Scope control or control scope means we are not doing more deliverables than we should, neither less deliverables than we should. You should have completed work package 1, 2, 3, 4. You just concluded 2. So you are behind in scope. This is scope control. You are creating new work packages that are not part of the WBS. Then scope control, you have scope creep. So scope control is, am I completing exactly what I suggested or what I have in my plan? Yes or no? This is scope control. And validate scope is acceptance. We also have control schedule. So 6.6 control schedule. As you are going to understand, we have control for each and every process here, control schedule. We have control costs, 7.4. And that means control schedule. Did we complete all the tasks we have in the schedule? Are we behind schedule, ahead schedule? So this is the information we need here. And in the cost control, it's similar. So how are we spending the money? Are we over budget, under budget? What can we do on that? And pay attention that for each of this, we have information. This is very, very important. In the execution, here we have data. How many tasks I completed, how much money I spent, how many deliverables I completed. Then you turn this data into information for each of these processes. Because if I completed 12 tasks, am I good? Is this bad? Is this good? I don't know. So in the schedule control, 12 tasks, but 12 tasks is 100% or is 30%. I'm behind, ahead. I can do predictions for each of these. So I turn the execution data into information for control. Okay? So this is very important. And then this information will be aggregated into the control project work. And in the control project works, we have data, we have information, and then we build knowledge here, we build suggestions, action plans, so that we can complete our project or bring our project back on track. Okay, so this is also very important. We have control cost or cost control. We have quality control. And we have resource control. So for all the processes, we have controlling. I'm going to put it here, 8.3, quality control. And here we have our control quality. So here we have another very interesting aspect that you have to pay attention. When we execute the project, here we have data, as I mentioned to you, and we have deliverables as end result. We're building things. These deliverables will go into the quality control, And if they are approved into quality control, then we get acceptance from our customers, okay? So we have completed deliverables, then we have verified deliverables here, verified deliverables, and then we have accepted deliverables, okay? So this is another very important aspect we have to be careful when you are studying the PMBOK guide and the processes and how we use those processes in our daily activities. So quality control is very important. We also have the control resources, so 9.6 control resources. Control resources means that during the project probably you are going to have changes, and maybe you're over allocated, maybe you have fewer resources than you need, so you have to control resource usage and availability. And as I mentioned, of course, you're going to have information here, and this information will be consolidated into the project work. So you have information here, bugs, percentage, how I'm going to do with quality, and that's it. So we control quality, we control the resources, we also control the risks, monitor and control risks, stakeholders, procurement, and communications. So in the communications, we have managed communications, then we have 10.3, control communications, we have 11.7, which is control risks. If the responses are effective, if we have any other new risk, or if you have any changes into the uncertainties related to the project. We have 12, we have the stakeholders engagement 12 point, no, that's related to conduct procurement. So we have 12.2 here, conduct procurement, 12.3 here, control procurement. What is control procurement? Control procurement is related to contract management. So if the vendors are delivering what they promised, if you're paying the vendors, if everything is going fine, so control procurement here. And finally, we have the control stakeholder engagement, monitor stakeholder engagement, control stakeholder engagement, which means for each of these processes related to control, we have information. So information, we're communicating well, we're not communicating well, we're completing all the documents, all the information, getting the reports. Is this being effective? This is a question we have to ask. Risk control, is risk increasing? Are the risk responses effective? Control procurement, how are we doing with contract management, contract administration? Stakeholder engagement, how are we doing? So as you can see, I know it's a little messy here, but if you're following my explanation, all the processes in control, they send information to 4.5 control project work so that we can consolidate performance predictions, we can implement or suggest corrective action, preventive action, and also repair any defects we have in our project. And as we move the way, we may have change requests from each and every process, and each and every stakeholder, we can have change requests, and these change requests are taken care here. So change requests. So this is the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling. And finally, we have the closing. Let me just explain closing here, and you will be able to manage any kind of project with this information that you just got here. So it's important that we understand this is an iterative process, okay? So we are initiating planning. As you plan, you may start the execution. You are executing and you're monitoring and controlling. You're comparing the execution to the plan. And as you compare the execution to the plan, maybe it will be needed to create change requests. If you have change requests, you update the plan and then you execute the plan. All right? So let's move to the closing phase, our last phase here. So in the closing process group, we have only one process, 4.7, close a project. In previous versions of the PMBOK guide, we also had a process to close procurement, but now it's included in the close a project. And what do you do in the close a project? And when do you close a project, right? So you did the planning, you're executing the plan. In controlling, you're comparing execution to the plan. And once you complete all the process, all the deliverables, all the activities, then you can close the project. But there are other ways that the project might be closed. You may close this successfully. So success, completed everything. I may also close this because it's not needed anymore. And in this case, I am going to document everything that changed. So some of the projects will go to the end and do all the deliverables, all the work and so on. And if it is a success, what we need is final acceptance, transition into operations, if you have warranty period, if you have training, if you have documentation, final reports, whatever you have here. You also have the lessons learned, compile lessons learned. You also need to close, administrative close all the contracts, close any information. If you have maybe procedures in your organization, you are going to close this project. And I hope you close this project in a successful way, right? So this is the end of overview of all the processes we have in the PMBOK guide. I hope you like it and stay tuned. I'm going to describe each of the knowledge areas, and also you can check other playlists on my YouTube channel. In this playlist, you are going to learn Agile Project Management, Scrum, Kanban, Discipline Agile. You're also going to learn not only about the PMBOK guide that I just explained, but you're going to learn about Prince2 and many other different methodologies. To conclude this, I would like to thank you for watching. Ask you if you want to leave any comment, any thoughts, any suggestions, please use the comments below. And final advice is that to be a great project manager, to evolve in the project management profession, it is important that you not only memorize and take the exams, but you have to understand how to apply these processes, tools, and best practices into your daily activities. And I often receive questions related to experience. I don't have an experience. How can I start? You can start with personal projects. You can start with volunteering. There are many different ways where you can put this knowledge into practice. You don't have to wait so that you get a job as a senior project manager. You have to evolve step by step. I have another video here describing the PMP certification versus the CAPM certification. Check out this video. If you do not have the experience yet, go for the CAPM certification. Then you build your experience through volunteering, personal projects, many other ways. And then you're going to have your career step by step. Nobody starts with experience. I'm working with project management for more than 15 years now. And when I started, I was just a freshman in engineering, and I was learning step by step, taking the courses and moving. Be careful, be patient, and you're going to be a great project manager. Count on me, stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next video.